Hey folks, how you doing? I'm not sure what day it is where you are, but today is the Thursday before Thanksgiving here in the United States. And yesterday was a gorgeous day, but there was a front that came through last night. So it's probably in the upper 40s. There's like a 10 to 15 mile an hour breeze coming. And I'm pretty sure the temperature is just going to slowly drop through the day. I am really hoping today is going to be the last day of this job. What I want to do is go ahead and get all the junk cleaned up. I've got a little bit of edging to do, not a ton, and then basically just plant some grass seed. I did mention this, this is a relative, and this morning as I left the house, my wife said that I can do as much work as I want here because I do such nice work, and there still is plenty of work to do. But hopefully you folks got something out of this, just seeing the day-to-day, the way I do things, and maybe you can incorporate into what you do. Maybe what we'll do first is we'll edge out the beds so we can get some of that debris on the truck, and once I get all that debris on the truck, then I can throw this other pile of debris over here on the truck. This isn't my saying, but there were some guys I worked with years ago, and they said something to the effect of steady, not slow, so you don't milk it, you don't try to go super fast, you just try to go steady. And I have to admit that when I'm working on projects, you kind of get into that flow, you get into that zone, and that's when you get the most done without even trying to get stuff done. So let's see if we can find the flow today. I just wanted to show you the fall color on this plant. This is Fothergilla gardenia, and it's one of the shrubs I use in a lot of landscapes because it's dwarf, it's slow growing, it's got beautiful bottle brush flowers in the spring, and then in the fall it comes back with this really nice fall color. I mean, really, it's different shades of reds, oranges, and yellows. So it's kind of tough to find. There's one place locally I buy it, but if you can find it, pick up some Fothergilla gardenia. Last week I ended up digging up some of these daffodil bulbs, so I just wanted to show you the 3-step process of what to do if that happens. Dig a hole. Put bulbs in hole. Cover. Do your best not to dig into another clump of bulbs when you're burying the first one. While we're talking about bulbs, I just want to show you this one clump here. If you've got a garden with bulbs like daffodils or tulips, as time goes by, they keep growing and more bulbs come. You'll see the older bulbs are the bigger ones, and then the younger ones are these smaller ones. What you can do is just dig up the whole clump and just plant. I usually just plant anywhere from 3 to 5 back where they were, and then just dig random holes in the garden and plant 3 to 5 bulbs back in the holes, and you're going to have more bulbs the next year. Now, you're not going to have as many flowers the first year, but as time goes by, they're going to thicken up. And because you separated them, they're not all competing for the same nutrients, so they're going to grow faster, they're going to look better. And this is especially great if you have like a really cool daffodil or tulip you want more of. It really is that easy. And these bulbs, for whatever reason, daffodil bulbs tend to migrate towards the surface. I don't know why. You should be planting these like 4 inches deep, but the way I just showed you. You see that? The thistle is already coming back, but that's okay because we knew it would. So all we need to do is grab our soil knife, always wear gloves when pulling thistle, get in there and get as much of that root as you can, kind of like that. And I want to just take a minute and show you again that when you see dandelions, just grab your soil knife and get under there as much as you can and try to get that root. See, somebody's already been in here and tried to get the root, which is why we've got all these smaller ones coming up. But just keep doing it. It's such a basic thing to come through and get the root. See this one too, somebody's already been through here. But I mean, it's not rocket science. But I see so many gardens where just simple things like pulling a dandelion aren't done. You know, folks, as I was walking through this landscape and I was just looking at the pruning we've done and the weeding we've done and the ripping out of plants we've done, suckers we've done, you know, it just occurred to me that, you know, this is not like you're going to come through, do it once, and it's all going to be good. And maybe that's why when I was initially told that I could just come through and just redo this landscape completely, I didn't want to do that. Don't get me wrong, we could have ripped everything out, started fresh. But it's a process, you know. I think society or some people seem to think that you do a landscape once and it's done. And I almost want to say that you should put half the amount of a landscape towards installing it and the other half towards maintaining it, or time, depending on, you know, which way you're going. But it's all a process. So even though this may not look perfect, what I'm doing here, we're going to come back next year and you're going to see new growth on these shrubs. We're going to come back next year and you're going to see those bulbs in the beds blooming and looking a lot better. You know, we're going to come back next year and it's not going to be so overcrowded, so then we can go ahead and add some more plants into the garden. You know, we're going to come back next year and there's probably still going to be some poison ivy on the side of the house over here, because I don't really want to mess with it. It's a process, you know? And I just want to find a way, and hopefully I'm doing that through these videos, to communicate that, you know, it's a process. All right, folks, so we're on the right side of the house here. Here's the dogwood, and this is pretty much full shade on this corner of the house. But what I want to do is I want to make a little more swoop to this bed. So what I did is I got through and got as many of the weeds as I could. I got my grub hoe and I dug out as many of the, what I assume are poison ivy vines as I could, use my pitchfork to throw them right on the truck. And now I just want to go back and cut a nice swoopy edge. I'm just going to put you guys on the tripod, and I was thinking of using my paint gun to do this, but in the real world, I would just use my shovel, and we'll do like a time lapse or something of me cutting this edge. All right, folks, I just wanted to show you the grass seed I just put down. And again, it's mid-November, but what I got here is some quick green grass seed. So if we look at the label, all bags of grass will have a label of exactly what's inside the bag. And it says right here that basically 70% of this is annual ryegrass. So an annual is a plant that only grows for one season, and ryegrass is a fairly aggressive type of grass. So this will actually germinate within like 5 to 7 days. If it was in the 60s, this would start to germinate in 5 to 7 days, which would give you that quick green. Perennial ryegrass also comes up quickly. So if you see a seed mix with perennial rye, you know, that's going to be the first seed you see germinating. And then creeping red fescue. Fescues like to grow in the shade. There's modern seed mixes with what's called a turf type tall fescue we're not really talking about. But your creeping fescues, your fescues in general, like to grow in the shade. So when you see fescue, the more fescue, the better it's going to do in the shade. And then this mix actually has no bluegrass. But if you see bluegrass, you know, bluegrass has that deep blue-green color, grows in full sun. It's the grass everybody wants, but bluegrass requires a lot more fertilizer and care to make it look nice. The wind is getting a little brisker and a little cooler, so we got to keep moving here. Over here on this side of the house, as you saw, I cut a fresh edge. I basically just raked most of the stuff back because there was no grass or weeds in there. There were some lower spots by the house. I raked it into the lower spots. I then went ahead and just, you know, raked up any debris where the grass is going and just put down that shade green. At this time of the year and for an area this size, I'm not even going to bother putting any hay down. I did leave, that's a privet over there, that, you know, which I think in some states privet hedges are invasive. If I was going to plant some shrubs, I would probably do in this corner, basically where the privet is, a leatherleaf viburnum or an Allegheny viburnum, which is a type of leatherleaf viburnum. It's a hybrid. That's going to give us some height, but not get too large over there. And this side of the house is pretty much full shade, so it'll be okay. If you wanted some quicker cover, what I would recommend is there's a new arborvitae called the green, I think it's a green giant arborvitae. I've planted a few of them, but not many because they grow so quickly. But green giant does very well in the shade. So you could tuck one green giant in here just to block the view from that window. So, you know, so folks aren't looking at each other. You know, one green giant over there. And then as far as a shrub goes for over here, it's a shade situation. It's deep shade. It's fairly organic soil. I would probably do like a Dorothy Wyckoff Andromeda, but I'm not sure. It might be too shady even for Dorothy Wyckoff. And that flowers late winter, early spring. It's got red bell-shaped flowers, clusters, but it only grows to be like 5 feet tall, you know, down the road. So that would stay low enough over here where it's not going to take things over. So it's getting close to lunchtime and I really do just want to get this done. So I did film a piece yesterday of how to edge over here. Unfortunately, I didn't turn my microphone on. So we're not going to bother talking about edging today more than we already did over there. But I'm just going to go ahead and clean up here. There's probably just going to be a few wheelbarrows. Throw that on the truck, get some lunch, and then after lunch, we can go ahead and start cleaning up all that junk behind my truck. There you go, folks. Proof that I cleaned up the entire mess. All right, folks, so I just want to do a quick tour here and just kind of give you the after. And, you know, I'm really not sure what to say about this one. I mean, we definitely pruned back in overgrown foundation planting significantly. Love the color on this dwarf Fothergilla. So we, you know, we really did, you know, significantly prune this back. And I would have to say minimum, it was 10 years of neglect going on here, where maybe somebody came out and just sheared the top of the shrubs once a year, maybe did 1 or 2 fall cleanups. You know, nobody went to the back of the shrubs. Remember the first day we were here? And I showed you the back of the shrub here and the junk from the holly. I mean, it's all cleaned out. The barberry reverted. There was an overgrown barberry here. I ripped that out. The junipers were covering half the sidewalk. The black-eyed Susan was covering half the sidewalk. So we, you know, we basically just took everything back, and we'll let it grow out next spring, and then we can decide what else we want to do. Remember how overgrown this Moonshadow euonymus was? And then over here, you know, we put a nice swoop. You see that nice swoop? It's all about the swoop, baby. Put a nice swoop on the edge of the beds. And again, in the spring, summer, whenever, we can always come back and plant more. But the most important part now is to do our best to keep up with maintaining this. Maintenance comes first, adding new plants comes second. I was just curious if anybody's living there. I don't see anybody. So that's pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. You know, hopefully you learned something about pruning, maybe a few different ways to do things. Maybe you realize that no matter how bad it is, little at a time, you can move forward, make it better. But hopefully you learned something. At some point in my life, I was at a seminar or something, and somebody said the average life of a landscape is 10 to 15 years. And I pretty much have used that as my go-to phrase. But I think that's kind of false. Because if you design a landscape right with shrubs that can be renewal pruned, like your hollies, your rhododendrons, the Enkianthus here, and if you don't plant shrubs that are going to overgrow the landscape in 10 to 15 years, if you have somebody maintaining that knows what they're doing, they can keep that going for longer. And the other part of that is, you know, maybe you do make a mistake. Maybe you do put like a crabapple on the corner of the house, you know, and whatever's around the crabapple, you know, becomes overgrown. You can always prune out the crabapple or whatever's overgrown and replace it, you know, and I guess it's kind of like more at my own house. You know, we've been in the house for 20 years now. I've got a Mount Laurel on the side of the house that was there when we bought it. I've got PG hydrangeas that were there when I bought them. I didn't just rip them out. I just pruned them aggressively and strategically and kept them looking the way I want. If a foundation planting is overgrown, yes, you're going to have to rip some stuff out, but maybe there are some of the bones of it that you can work with. Or quite often what I'll do is if I'm ripping out a foundation planting, I'll transplant some of the broadleaf evergreens somewhere else in the yard where maybe my client wants a little bit of screening or something. It's just something to consider. In this landscape, the barberry's gone, the juniper's gone. I mean, they may not know it yet, but if I ever come back here to do more work and I'm allowed to plant stuff, I'm not a fan of barberry anymore. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of juniper. Maybe in full sun, hot, dry, but in mostly shady, fairly damp soil, no, that was a mistake on my part. That's pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. Hopefully you got something out of it, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. I am really hoping I'm on the camera. Like, what the hell? So that's pretty much going to do it for this one, folks. I can't see a thing. Can you hear me now? Good.